Time for us to say good afternoon. David Heurtel is standing by, former Quebec Liberal cabinet minister and now political analyst. So, David, I've spent some time and heard from listeners today discussing this idea that there will not be an English debate, a TV debate between the provincial leaders prior to the October election. I think most callers, and I'm reading texts and from people we heard from, fairly disappointed. Some consider this a snub. I would also point out that with respect to the Liberal Party, the provincial Liberal Party, this answer, which came after apparently all the other parties had already weighed in, which was, well, we'll do it, but only if the other parties will also do it as well. A lot of people scratching their heads over that. Can you explain that?
I can't. I got to tell you, I was surprised by the Liberals' response. Now, it's going to be 2 election cycles in a row now where there isn't an English language debate. It is a snub. We're talking about over 1 million English-speaking Quebecers that will not have the chance to evaluate the leaders of the 5 major parties in their language, and it's wrong. And the Liberals, baffling, I got to say, through the voice of a spokesperson, saying, well, you know what, if nobody else, if everybody comes in, we'll come in, but not taking any type of leadership position on this. Look, for the PQ and the CAQ, there's no political upside in an English debate, and so it's somewhat understandable for them. But as you discussed with a lot of the callers, the CQ lip service, and we discussed this many times, whether it was Christine Fréchette or François Legault or whoever else at the CQ, Christopher Skeet, who comes on regularly, tries to muddy the waters. There is no respect for the English-speaking community within the CQ, nothing. And so I hope anybody that ever doubted that, for now it's clear. But for the Liberals, it is difficult to follow, especially if, again, you have to remind the Liberals and Charles Milliard, without the English-speaking community, the Liberals right now are not the official opposition in Quebec City, and they would be close to be wiped out of the map. And let's be very careful, because every time we look at the polls, the Liberals are second, Liberals are second. But as you well know, when you look at the Francophone vote and you look at the regions, the Liberals are distant thirds in the Francophone vote and even fourth in the Quebec City region. And it's only, again, the English-speaking community that is keeping the Liberals alive in Montreal, in the townships, Laval, and in the Outaouais. And so at the very least, Charles Milliard should come out and say, well, you know what, we will do town halls. We will go on the English networks and have conversations. Radio-Canada did that last election cycle. I don't know if they'll do it again, where they had hour-long conversations with each leader. Why not have that? Why not Charles Milliard reaching out and trying? I know there are election laws and finance laws. It's going to be, you have to respect those, but why not work with the Conservatives and Quebec Solidaire, who say they would be willing to do an English debate, to try to do something for the English-speaking community without the CEQ and the PQ.
Well, let me ask you a question. So 2018, which was the last time we had a televised debate in English, that's when you made a really interesting point, David, which is, you know what, there's nothing politically to gain for the CAQ or the PQ in doing this. What was there in 2018 for the CAQ to gain?
I think back in 2018, you had a party in François Legault who hadn't won yet, and it was still not clear. And let's remember, the PQ was in somewhat already of a tailspin. They were the opposition back in 2018. It was Jean-François Lisée. Not necessarily showing momentum, and for the CAQ, I think it was more of a calculation, since for the first time they were competitive in Laval, for example, and there were members of the Anglophone community that were looking at the CAQ, for example, in Laval. And that was before 96. It was before 21. It was before Bill 40. Remember, you have to put the full context. And also, there was a lot of people. It was after 4.5 years of let's say the difficult Philip Couillard, the difficult. I have trouble saying it myself since I was part of the government.
Yeah.
But it was a difficult 4.5 years of Philippe Couillard as premier and the Liberals. So the idea here is that I think the circumstances were different for François Legault because he was the up-and-comer. He was the politician that was saying yes to everything. He was saying, yeah, sure, we'll be there for the Anglos. And a lot of Anglos actually listened. And the proof in that was that in the townships, in the Ottawa region, in Laval, guess what? CQ picked up a lot of seats in 2018. That is not the case anymore today. For Christine Fréchette, she has a strategy. She's not looking at 125 seats strategy. She's not trying to be competitive everywhere. She's looking at probably 65 set to 75 seats where she's trying to be competitive. And to be perfectly fair, to be realistic, she's looking at maybe 50 seats that she can hope to be really competitive in. That means, with an outside chance of winning. Those are all francophone regional seats that don't have major Anglo communities. So, and for Paul Saint-Pierre-Plamondon, it's of course, just a basic question of principle. But François Legault showed in 22 where, he was already heading in a landslide. There was no way anybody was going to threaten him. So he said, what's the point?
Yeah.
And so he set that precedent. Now, the reasons are different today, but and these weird debate rules where all five have basically a veto right. All five parties have a veto right. So if the five parties don't agree, then it doesn't happen. So that means every single party has a veto. So the minute the PQ says, I'm not going, and for the PQ and the CAQ, it's, preparing a debate, it's at least 2-3 days that you're not on the campaign trail. So for them, it's a calculated gamble, but there's not a lot to lose for them.
Well,
but it was completely different in 2018.
Let me phrase the question then in a different way. What would the CAQ and the PQ have to lose by being involved in an English debate?
Tripping up and trying to say something because the thing is right now, you're looking at seats. Again, this election is going to be in the regions. You're looking right now at 3-way and 4-way races where we're going to be electing M&As with sometimes probably 28, 29, 30% of the vote. Okay? And that means that in these ridings, 100, 200, 500 votes will make the difference. So in this very specific type of situation, if you do an English debate and you get tripped up and you expose yourself as being too, let's say, enthusiastic towards English or detrimental to French, you hurt your nationalist credentials, you hurt your position on French, and the nationalist vote that the CAQ is trying to hold on to is going to go to the PQ. So that's the calculation for the CAQ, is that Fréchette, again, she'll go to the Chamber of Commerce in Montreal and say, we'll change tones, and she'll go to CJAD and say, we're going to change our tone. But it's going to be different where she's going to go on national television and in English, face that question. Imagine, Mitsumi Takahashi saying, well, you said you were going to change the tone with the Anglophone community. How are you going to do that? Well, that is the question that Christine Fréchette does not want, because on the other side, the next day, the Journal de Montréal and all their commentators are going to be waiting for her to attack whatever answer she comes up with.
Look, I'm not scripting her answer, but isn't the answer simply, we're all Quebecers? I mean, it's not that hard to get around that, is it?
Again, I agree with you. That would be the right answer in a perfect world, right? But again, here's the thing. There are Quebecers, nationalist Quebecers in the regions that an answer like that is saying, oh, you're not defending French enough. Wow. And again, while the French language, while nationalist identity issues are not a priority when you look at poll after poll after poll, if you look at very tight three-way and four-way races in regions where 100, 200, 400 votes may make the difference, that's where that vote, you don't want anything to alienate that vote. That's the thin ice people feel they're on. I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, I know
I'm
what you're
just trying
saying.
to explain.
Yeah.
I'm explaining where, if you're looking at the CAQ trying to rebuild, okay, the votes that the CAQ have lost in the last 2 years, they've lost some to the Liberals and lost some to the PQ and lost some to the Conservatives. That's in the regions. So Christine Fréchette is trying to be everything to everyone right now, trying to bring back those votes to the CAQ in these ridings. But again, you're talking about very close races, and so an English debate for her, there's absolutely no upside and potential downside.
So I just want to play my favorite clip, and I don't know if you heard this one as well. I said I'm even disappointed in Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, who famously said this.
I want Anglophones to vote PQ. Their interest is our interest. We all have the same interest.
Great. So show up on an English debate. You want us to vote? So, no.
No, of course not.
Of course
not.
Okay.
No. Because again, for him, that's counter to
that's suicide for the PQ.
Stance. It's counter to his hardline stance, and again, he doesn't feel he has to do that. And again, for him, his hardline, hardcore nationalist identity, nationalist supporters like to hear that from him, saying, no, I'm not going to talk to English-speaking community. But again, when he comes back on your podcast, I hope you ask him the question.
I think it's only fair to ask, just like I would ask Christine Fréchette if you should ever show for another English interview, exactly what you said, David. So you talked about changing the tone, and that would be how exactly?
How exactly do you, at a key moment, at a pivotal moment, an election campaign, you don't feel changing the tone doesn't include speaking to over 1 million of your fellow Quebecers?
To which the answer would be, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What? David Heurtel. David, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Close your eyes, and you can hear the entire world come alive. 2026 FIFA World Cup is on, and you can stream it all live on TSN Radio. From the opening kickoff to the final celebration, every match, every moment. Listen to FIFA World Cup on TSN Radio.
Gives Canada the liftoff.
Available on iHeartRadio.